Mr. Mayor, where do you think Boston and Massachusetts is on the curve of this? You've just recorded, the state's recorded a record number of deaths.
Yeah, I think that we're still in the curve. I haven't seen, at least in the last 5 days here in Boston, a leveling off. We're still averaging about 200 plus cases a day of coronavirus, people testing positive. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we're fluctuated between 1,500 to 1,900 in the course of a day. I still think we have a bit of a hill to climb here before we see a plateau. And there's a lot of work. We're doing a lot of work about explaining social and physical distancing and explaining to people the importance of washing your hands and covering your face. But it seems like we still have the plateau. The positive side is our hospitals. We built as you know, a hospital at the BCEC, the convention center, called Boston Hope. Right now, we have about 142 people in there. That's with the side of home. We have homeless folks in there, and we have hospital people in there. And so it's not full, but it's definitely helping alleviate some of the pressure on our hospitals to keep our hospitals available for emergency rooms.
Mr. Mayor, what do you need?
Tests. I think two things we need. We need tests. We need to be able to do a larger sampling of tests to really get an understanding of how do we move forward and how do we begin a phased-in approach to restart our economy here in Boston and Massachusetts. I think number one, and number two, we continue to need PPE. We have hospitals that continue to need supply, backup supply. We have nursing homes and assisted living facilities that need this equipment, and we also need gowns. So all of that stuff, when we're ordering it on our own and we're trying to buy it from third parties, which is fine. We can do that in Boston. But the problem is the supply is just not there. And I think that those are some of the biggest concerns that I see moving forward here. I think the fact of rushing back to work like I'm seeing other states, I hope that they're okay, and I hope that it works out for them all. But I know here in Boston and Massachusetts, it's not the time to rush back. We need to be planning what it looks like going back. But your previous guest was talking about that we're going to be in this conversation and this situation for months and possibly a year ahead of us. And we really have to think about how do we make sure we prepare so we don't have a second surge when we do start to send industry people back to work.